Oh, hello, everyone. And today I'm extremely excited to have this wonderful guest, Holly Barras. And I don't even know how to introduce her. For me, seeing her journey from actually probably having no brand, just really had no idea about what is she doing in the background, just knew her as a personality who was growing. And then seeing her brand develop to something that's really strong, in my opinion, and very inspiring today. So when she agreed to give an interview for you guys, I was very, very happy and very grateful. So Holly, could you please just shortly introduce yourself and let us know what actually gave you strength to commit to this journey of creating something big and meaningful like this brand?
Oof, that's a big question. So I'm Holly, first of all, hello. I still feel like this brand is very much in its infancy, in its early stages, but it's been almost 3 years now in the making to get to this point without intentionally trying to get it to this point. So it's, I'm jumping ahead too much here. My business now is helping small businesses who primarily have been built, the businesses themselves have been built out of necessity due to some kind of trauma that's happened in their life. And trauma is a big word, which I'll expand on in a minute, but and help them to grow using Instagram, the power that is Instagram. And that kind of all happened by accident. I didn't think 3 years ago that this is what I would be doing in 3 years' time or 2.5 years' time. And it's kind of just been the brand itself has been a progression of, first of all, when needs must, I had to create something out of nothing. 2.5 years-ish, 2.5, 3 years ago, when Joshua, my youngest child, was diagnosed with cancer. I couldn't do the job that I'd been doing for years and needed to create an income off the back of, at that point, something that had nothing that I'd actually got. Which is when I learned all about digital marketing, got into all that. My eyes were totally open. So learned on a very broad level about lots of different aspects of the digital world, but then started selling that knowledge to local businesses to monetize it. So that's what I was doing 3 years ago, and that's kind of created or allowed me to what I've got now to naturally and organically evolve. So I'd spent, once I'd got out of the firefighting stage of creating an income to support me and my 2 kids, because I was the only income provider and still am. Once I got out of that stage, then I needed it to be more meaningful, because there was not really much that, it didn't spark me every morning to be doing that kind of stuff for local businesses without much meaning behind it. It was just a means to an end. But when I was chatting to people about things, it was more people who were very interested in how I'd done that. And sharing how I'd created something out of nothing kind of got me onto this other train of, right, well, let me show you what I've been doing and you can do the same. And that's the way it was born. And when I say that it feels like it's still in its infancy, a lot of the change, even in the last 12 months, most of this has developed in the last 12 months. Well, all of it has, really. And that's come around or about because I've spent so much time intentionally learning about me, learning about what I want, what my values are, what my purpose is, what I want to share with people to help them to do, who have been through a similar situation to me. Now, it doesn't have to be the kid's got cancer. It could be anything. That I just find that people with those kind of stories inspire me, and they're relating to me more because I've been through a similar kind of thing as well. So it's more now that I get to help people on a daily basis. They're in this situation that I was in almost 3 years ago, and I can turn around and say, right, well, this is what I did. And I'm not just talking about Instagram, because Instagram is the what of the golden circle. There's the how and the why that are far more important to me. It just happens to be that it's Instagram that I've used and leveraged, and I'm showing people how to do the same so they can start grabbing that control back of their lives. Does that actually answer your question? I always ramble on at these questions. So if I'm not answering,
I think you answered a couple of more questions that I was planning to give you. But no, that absolutely makes sense. And I'm just thinking now about the people, you know, who maybe are just thinking of starting their own business and creating their own brands. And I'm just thinking, have you had any doubts? Was it like, did you feel any fear or anything? Like, what was going on in your head when you had to, you know, transition into being actually creating something of yourself, even if that was an agency that was helping, you know, other entrepreneurs at the beginning, and then it evolved into what it is now. But like, do you remember your feelings back then and what you were scared of? And
yeah, it was a really weird time actually, and it was kind of so my checklist for creating income was I needed to be able to do it on my time when I could sit and do some work, because with Joshua's treatments and everything, I might go a whole week and not be able to open a laptop. So it needed to be on my time. It needed to be wherever I was, so I didn't have to go into an office or anything like that, hence the online thing. It ticks that box. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I knew that I needed to do something on a laptop, and I just had to figure out what that thing would be. As far as fears go, again, it was such, looking back at the time, I was doing what I needed to do every day. But now I look back, it's like, oh my God, how did you manage to deal with, you know, the very real possibility of losing another child through the cancer, and then have zero income and all that kind of stuff. The fear was about Joshua, and this seemed really insignificant. So it's because I did what I had to do at that point. I kind of nailed it down to I need something on a laptop, but other than that, it was just do what you need to do to get the end result. But at the time, I kind of had the fear of this not working was paled into insignificance compared to the other stuff that I was trying to process. So it was just a case of getting it done.
Yeah.
And just keep going until, do you know, it's funny, when your back's against the wall and you have no other option, you make things work. Yeah. And whenever you've got a get out clause, I've been wanting to do this for over 2 years before this actually happened, because I hated the job. It was completely consuming my entire life, and by that also consumed my kids' lives and all that kind of stuff. I'm going for ages about that story. But I never believed it was possible that I could come out of a job, you know, a traditional job where you get paid every month. Yes, you sacrifice and everything, but I never believed that I could do this, or it was possible. It was for those people over there who've got this other thing about them. Whereas when you've got no option, you just do it. So it's I still got fears now. Going back to the whole fears thing, fears change all the time depending on what level of where you're at in the journey. But I always compare it back to the worst things that have happened in my life being, well, there's two ways that I conquer the fear, that this story that goes on in my head is, one is I compare it to the worst things that have happened in my life. So I lost one child, I didn't lose him, he died. I hate it when people say that I lost people. I know exactly where he is. He's upstairs on my drawers. One child died, and the other one was facing that with cancer. So I've come through that. I'm not going to say I've got over it, but I've come through it, and I'm living a life now that I'm really happy in. So if I can deal with that, I can deal with anything else that life wants to throw at me in between now and then. But also it's not the fear about the unknown in the future is not looking back, is not, which kind of contradicts themselves. It's trying to talk that voice down as to, well, if you just keep doing something, eventually that's going to get you onto the right path of where you want to be. So yeah, fear is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
It still happens, but it's just being really mindful of that and putting everything into perspective. And
now it just popped into my head. So some other people would say, okay, so we're kind of pushed by life to actually start what you've started. But then did you have any resources at the back of your life? Like, did anyone help you financially? Or did you have massive savings or anything? Because
no, I literally started from a minus position. There's no, I was the only income provider. I don't get any other help from their dad that doesn't contribute anything. It's me and whatever I bring into this. Now, because I'd had to stop work early in 2016, the savings that I did have, which weren't extortionate, there were nothing to write home about, were eaten up very quickly with just bills and travelling to hospital and buying everything that we needed for that. So it was the small amount of savings that I did have would gone very quickly. I had no or very little access to credit because a few years back before that I was declared bankrupt, which means that I can't get any or any decent amount of credit. No, I had nothing. I started from, as I said, I was in a minus position once I started this. And that didn't happen overnight. I didn't turn everything around overnight. This was a slow process of getting out of that situation. Mm-hmm. And by no means am I living this luxury lifestyle right now, but I'm living a happy lifestyle, and it's very easy, the whole it's not about the money. It completely is about the money, and people that say it isn't, I challenge them, because money buys choices and allows you to do things that you might not otherwise be able to choose from. Now, is the end goal always money? No, it's not. For me, it's not. If I was listening to a podcast this morning, actually, Gary V podcast, and he was on about that people are chasing money, and people have got in their mind that they need to earn $1 million to be a winner, when actually, I think it was something like you only need to earn 440,000 to be in the top 1%. So it's all this concept of money, but actually, I'm going totally off topic now, but it's not. I want the money there to provide choices, but actually I'm chasing something that's much bigger, that's further down this path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very good that you mentioned that, because some people, and I think that's definitely an illusion. Anyone who managed to quit their jobs and create the businesses around them, and especially if they're doing something that's fulfilling for their heart, they will tell you wouldn't have you wouldn't have what to do with a lot of money. But in reality, to live a happy life, you don't need that much. And maybe that gap is actually not that big between, where you are very unfulfilled, and in order to be happy and feel fulfilled with what you do is not that much. So it's not yes, you will grow in your life later on. But the beginning isn't that, big a gap usually. And so the next question is actually coming out of that. So what does it take to create, a brand like this? And I know it's a lot, and I want you to think about where did you invest most? So your time, money. You mentioned that you didn't have many funds, but maybe where did you invest those funds that you had, or how you worked out? Maybe you gained some funds on the way. What about education, and were your biggest sacrifice and investments basically to create what you have today?
I have spent money on educating myself and reskilling, so that's within the SFM. That was the major point for me that opened my eyes up to what was possible and gave me such a solid foundation to build on off that. So that was at the beginning, that was the major thing. This is where I got the skills from. Then after that in the last 12 months, I didn't even look at how much money I've spent on skilling up myself on Instagram because it's constantly changing, and I wanted to make sure I was on top of everything, as well as testing things myself, to find what works and why it works and how that can be implemented with other people. But so yeah, I've spent a lot of money on coaching for that, training for that. I'm saying a lot of money. That's all. What's the word for that? I can't think of it. It's all something. Anyway, let's move on from that. It's all relative to where I've got now. But you can't do this without investing. You can't do anything without investing, whether that's some money or whether that's a lot of time. You've got to invest something into yourself. So, and I've spent more time investing in myself than I have with money. Is that true to say? It's probably, well, if it's not more, it's probably at least equal, because I'd gone through, and I know I'm not alone in this, I've spoken to so many people who feel the same way, is that when you hear this quote, you've got to find yourself, or to get back to yourself and all this kind of stuff. I didn't actually know who I was, because for as long as I can remember, I've been who somebody else needed me to be, whether that's a daughter, a wife when I was married, a mum, an employee, all these kind of things. And I was like, oh God, right, okay. So now when I can be anything, who actually am I? So I spent so much time in this last year really digging to find out who I am, what all my, as I said before, about the values and what it is that I can share and serve to society. And that's been a massive learning curve, but so worth it, because everything I do now, I'm building on authentic values that are there and what's important to me. So yeah, that's been a massive investment in time to do that. And you can't rush these things. I talk all the time about playing the long game, because you can't, any quick fixes, no matter what we're looking at in life, they just don't pay off in the long term. So I knew that at the beginning of when I had to do this 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I was in that firefighting stage where I had to create some income, because I'd got 2 kids, if nothing else, to support. So I knew that, and I always know that I can do that, because I've got skills that are going to enable me to do that. But it was really investing in me to find out what's going to make.
And I think that's the biggest difference actually between the traditional business you and online digital business. It kind of, your investment is in different places. So I would say, like, digital business doesn't require that much investment as of in the business itself. It requires your time and invest in your education, because most often we need to reskill. Whereas traditional business, you need to invest in all the premises and everything, and it's much more than digital tools that you need, So it kind of, and then when you think, it actually eventually gives you time freedom. So that's why I'm really passionate about that, and really hearing your story is amazing. So how, if you needed to say now, how did it actually change your life from where you were when you really just was forced into it, and now where you said in the last 12 months especially you had a massive improvement, a massive growth? So how did it change your life?
Yeah, God, in so many different ways. And this is only scratching the surface as well. This is just in such a short space of time. So it took, if we go back to when I first had to move over, it gave me the opportunity to be the mum, the person that Joshua needed me to be, without having to think about work and the pressures that were coming off the back if I was still in this if I was still in the job that I was in before, because it would just, my concentration could not be on him. Whereas with what I was doing, that allowed me to be 100% focused and present with him whenever he was awake. I only did my stuff on the laptop when he was asleep, so I didn't know any different. So that was a huge thing that I got instantly. But gosh, trying to list everything how it's changed my life, I'm getting to and I didn't do this for the kids, actually, as it turns out. This is the one thing that the story and the process that I've been through is that I thought that I was doing this for the kids, so they could have me as a mum and all that kind of stuff. Well, actually, if I'm being totally honest, that's not why I wanted to do it. And that's not why I was looking at things 2 years before this, is because I wanted to be able to live abroad when the kids are out of school and things, and I wanted to control my life, and I this is why I didn't, not for the kids, but the benefits that the kids get are a byproduct of that, of me being able to do what I want to do. So I'm completely present in their lives. They might say too present because I'm there all the time for them. I get to work with, I choose who I work with now, so I only work with the people who I want to work with. I wake up every morning, and it sounds really cheesy and like cliche, but I actually love doing what I'm doing because I can see the direct impact that I can have, not just on somebody else's life, because that's almost selfish that I get pleasure out of their progress, but it's just allowing. I never want anyone to feel like they're in the same position that I was in 2.5, 3 years ago. And if I can do anything, however that looks and manifests itself, to help them just nudge a little bit further on to get them out of that brain space and the logistical space of where they're at, then that's what I want to do every single day, however that looks. And Instagram is just one teeny tiny part of it, but that can be so powerful to help people move on with things. Yeah, so it's changed my life in that way. I feel like I'm surrounded by amazing people now. I'm very selective about who I spend my time with. I'm very aware of everything that goes on around me, and I don't have to settle anymore. I guess that's the biggest thing, to put it into one sentence. I don't have to settle with anything or anyone, and that's pretty powerful when you can.
Yeah, you don't need to fit in anymore, and you just, surround yourself. Once you find yourself, actually, and you are yourself, you attract the people that are the right people in your life. So that's magic.
Yeah. Which all sounds very woo-woo, because I'm not a woo-woo person at all. So I was kind of aware of the law of attraction and all this kind of stuff before now, and I'm very black and white. I like tangible things that I can see, touch. But it's so true, like all this stuff, you attract all this stuff when you're putting that stuff out there. It just happens, and it's not a coincidence.
So Holly, what would you say your brand stands for?
Choice. And all about choice and control of the quality of your life. I firmly believe, and I rant on about this all the time, that we've all got the power to control the quality of our lives, but that comes at the other side of making some pretty big and brave and bold choices. And that's what I want to be a stand for, is that we can do that. We can make these brave and bold choices to get to this power and get that power of our lives and to control the quality of them. And that's the underlying message throughout everything that I believe in, that I stand for, and hopefully that comes across in the messaging that I'm putting out there, is that's what I believe, and that's what I want to help people to be able to do.
It definitely does. It definitely does. I love the strength of your voice, and the whole consistency throughout. And maybe if someone is creating, because if they are watching this video, I think they are, a brand, what would you say, looking back now throughout the whole journey, and I know you are not finished yet, and I know you're just feeling like you warmed your feet up, but I can see that I already see you going already. Sometimes people need to find focus. They kind of feel like there and there, and I feel like you already found your path, and now it's just the growth and development that's coming up. So what would you say is the most important to actually find that focus and creating your brand? What's the most important about the brand?
I think it's understanding, or where I find it, this might be different for everyone else, but where I found it after 2 years of doing and just doing and doing and doing, you kind of get to feel what's right for you. It's like a train track. I always imagine it as a train track, and once the wheels are sat on that track properly, you can feel that you're on the right track, literally, and you can just keep moving forward on that. But you only know that by doing things, and because we can't just think that this is going to be the answer. You've got to actually do it and feel it and see what's happening.
So what shows you? You say you're gonna see. So what do you see when you know that you're on the right path?
People are responding to the message that you're putting out there, but the messaging is the most important thing, and that's what I struggled on. I've struggled on messaging for so long now, and I've chatting to somebody a couple of weeks ago about this, is that I've actively avoided the one thing that is actually my message. I've avoided it because I didn't want that to define me. But actually the power, this is what I've now realised, is that the power is in the story after that thing, not with the actual thing that happened. So once I've really understood that and accepted that and allowed myself to be okay with that, the messaging is the most important part. So it's understanding not what my story is, but how, by sharing that story. And now we don't all have to have the massively traumatic situations in our lives to share. It could be whatever it is that you're the poster child for, is that's the thing that your brand is. And once you start to understand, or once I started to understand what my messaging really was at its core, then everything else just kind of slotted simply around that. But as long as you've got, for me, as soon as I understood that message and what I wanted to be a stand for, then that's when the wheels sat on the track, and it was in that groove. And again, I don't know what this train journey is going to come along. I didn't think I'd be sat here talking about Instagram for most of my week, but that's what I do, because that's the thing that I can help people to impact their lives by learning and getting a grip on that to help them move forward.
Absolutely. And I think your brand is, I can call it a brand now, because I can see that's what you said. You found your story, and people started answering to that story, and it's because you became consistent. That's the key, I think. How your messaging, this is it, and you said that, and it's like when people start seeing you in the same way, majority of people, that's when you've got a brand. And I feel like you nailed it absolutely, and are going there further on. So talking about the future, Holly, do you have any visions, anything what you would like to have in the future with your brand, or maybe even something else?
Yeah, and it kind of all comes under the same umbrella. So when I said before about these people who I seem to, the attraction process of it. So I've been putting things out there, listening to what people are actually responding to. And that's true to me, and honing in on that side. But it's really interesting that the people that have really responded to the content and messaging and everything like that are people who, as I said before, have had something happen to them, and we can relate on that level. So it seems to be always there's a child involved somewhere. And it might be through various different stories between all three of my kids that people have related to. And that's where I feel my power is, because that's my experience, how I can, not that I'm going to advise people on things like that, but it's the future for me is a much bigger aspect. I never want any mum to be sat on the bench. This bench is the real time I had the realisation when Joshua was up in surgery. I never want any mum to have a bench moment, and I never want any child's family to not have the support that they need to be able to go through something like this. So it's all it's the same thing underneath everything. So yeah, the future wise, I've just got I'm about to kick something else off as well, which has been festering for 2 years. And this is the thing that I've been actively avoiding because I didn't want that to define me, is that it's really the one thing that I that was really evident while we were going through our journey with our thing with Joshua's cancer, is that no one knew how to help to support me. There are charities and all this kind of thing to help support the child, which is amazing, and we couldn't have got through it. But actually, for other people, my friends and family really didn't know, and teachers didn't know how to support us outside of this cocoon, this bubble that is cancer life in hospital. And I firmly believe that if my friends could have accessed some kind of inside knowledge about what was really going on in our lives, and that they didn't say anything because they didn't know what to say, or they did say something and it was completely the wrong thing to say, and it was just like that. So that's something that I'm really, and this is like my absolute passion project, is to get that information out there, not for the family themselves, but the friends and family of the child that's been, whether that's diagnosed with cancer or whatever. Let's see who is attracted by the stuff that I'm putting out there. But it's such a difficult fight every day to get people to understand what it's actually like. Like with Joshua now at school, we're 2 years since the end of treatment, and we're still fighting every single day to get them to understand what the long-term side effects are of childhood cancer. And again, if I believe that if they understood and had insider knowledge about what life's really like for him, other than the 55 minutes per lesson, 6 lessons he gets a day, snapshot that they see of him, they wouldn't be able to help him to reach his potential much more easily than this constant battle between like invisible side effects and education that they've got to teach. So it's so it's all about education and awareness that I want to bring to the people who are not in the bubble but are around it close enough that they are indirectly impacted by it. So that's the next thing that is going to come out.
Wow. I think it's so needed. I think, it kind of like, I feel the same when I find the family, or even yourself, to be honest with you. I always wanted to share with you a lot of love and everything, but I'm always thinking, well, is it the right thing to say or not? And then I don't say anything because I just don't want to harm anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's very needed. It's definitely very important.
I know I would have, and I'm not saying I wasn't supported, because I was massively supported by my mum and dad and my brother and his then girlfriend but now wife. So I have had amazing support, but not everybody's in that situation. So if people who are the distant people or distant, because all they want to do is help, whatever people say, they want to help. Yes. But it's knowing that can come across in very different ways. And with the parent, like with me, I was at super heightened emotional level throughout all this, obviously. So any tiny little thing that somebody said wrong, it'd be like, end of it. So that's bigger mission, bigger vision, is to make sure that the parent, I'm saying parent, I'm talking from a mum's perspective, but I'm sure the same or very similar would be from a dad's, is to make sure that we're not in that situation when it comes to having a child put in a situation like that, and then what do you do and how do you choose to respond to that, as well as making sure that these kids are supported indirectly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to witness all the journey, what the journey unfolds for you. I'm extremely, extremely happy for you, Holly, and very, very grateful for you today to give this interview. And I hope it inspires a lot of people as well to take action and actually take their life into their hands. And as you said, to get those choices for themselves, because they have them. They just need to be brave enough to do that. Thank you, Holly.
You're very welcome.